Okay.
Diablo 2. It feels like a couple
Okay,
people,
well, we're
not me
listening to this.
saying in regards to this. Number one, this is not me saying I hate the game. This is not me saying this game needs to be Diablo 2.
This, this is Mr. Llama on YouTube. Okay, give you guys the link of the video.
It feels like a couple people have misinterpreted that. I'm making this with a couple of thoughts in mind. Number one, there are many things that I think would be simple wins that would improve the game, that would just make Diablo 4 a better Diablo 4. Number two, when I come into the mindset of these changes, for a lot of them, I'm not trying to think in the mindset of how can I make this game more like Diablo 2? How can I make this game more of a, this older ARPG? I'm trying to make it with the mindset of this game is a modern ARPG. It is Diablo 4, and I'm just trying to give changes that I think would make Diablo 4 a better Diablo 4. So I just want to put that out there to be clear, because I don't think these changes are just, it needs to be Diablo 2. Now, are there some pieces that maybe I thought, hey, D2 did better and you could bring it back? Sure, but that's not the overall focus, and that's not the overall point for all of this. So, with that being said, let's dive in. First off, we'll start with bosses. Number one, there is a big blind spot in the bottom left during the Duriel fight. This is something I forgot to mention, but I remember seeing it when I was playing that fight, and somebody brought it up as well. The wall that you enter in, the bottom 1/3 of the map is just a blind spot, and it just is awful. So that just should be fixed, right?
It's like an enclosure box thing, and you just can't see the bottom part. That's what he's saying. Yeah, I killed the boss.
Number two, allow for killing story bosses again for fun and farming. I think that this would be something a lot of people would love, right? It's like, ooh, Andariel, ooh, Duriel, right? Like, people love going and killing story bosses, and that was like a big fun thing that, again, did exist in D2, but also existed in pretty much every game, I feel like, is you've been able to go back and kill any boss that you wanted to kill again, to farm it, just for the fun of killing that boss, whatever. I think this would be a simple addition that people, again, would really love, because we all just love visiting those bosses repeatedly, right? Number three, make a world boss spawning a bit more apparent, especially if they're going to become something cooler. Right now, again, the world bosses are pretty bland, they're weak, they're not great fights. But I know that you guys, I know the devs have talked about adding in more world bosses and making it, this cool thing. And I think the idea is still cool, but it's really hard to know when a world boss is going to spawn. I feel like I never actually know. I don't see a notification or anything. I just know because somebody in chat says, hey, world boss is in 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh, there's a world boss.
That works for me.
I've been playing like 12 hours a day, and I don't think there's been a single time where I have actually seen a notification or something telling me a world boss is going to spawn. Besides,
that's totally true, and I've learned about world bosses from you guys the same. Thank you. But like, world bosses really kind of suck. Like, sure, you want to get your weekly in, but yeah, you'll notice like once a week. Right, that's like a 30-minute timer. And also, I think up until this point, a lot of the gameplay has been just repeating a dungeon over and over, so you never actually look at the map. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying like it is, right? It's just been that. But I think the way they designed the game, or tried to anyway, was that you wouldn't do that. And you do like Nightmare Sigils and Helltide and stuff. And it's all this kind of stuff that actually requires you looking at the map. Which makes me kind of double down on why the hell we don't have a map overlay. But you know what? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I think they thought that people would use the map literally all the time, So the map notification, which is like 30 minutes prior or something, I've seen it over 20, so it's at least like 20 something, is good enough. And yeah, it's not really good enough because no one uses the map, but you know, if they nerf dungeons enough. Speaking of which, this dungeon is pretty good still. So you might want to head over to Blind Burrows and do a few runs before you never bother doing it again.
Accidentally maybe on the chat, or from the chat, or just in the map. Moving on, party. It is very easy to get slightly off track of the campaign with your party leader, and then it causes you to have to go back and solo and catch up through everything. There's just some weird, something funky about how when you party up and you're doing the quest, but like every single quest needs to be completed while together, and maybe I'm not exactly sure what it is, but there are multiple times where we were going through the campaign where one of us would get essentially just off, right? It was like, oh, somebody like got kicked out of party, we re-invite them back. But in that time, one person maybe clicked something, or somebody was caught in a cutscene. I don't know. It was strange, and it led to a lot of like disappointment because then that person would be like, oh, wait a second, I haven't been getting the quest out.
This is like real, like they have a stack of like things that they need to do in a priority sequence. That thing is really low on that stack, okay? Fixing the campaign like smoothness for speedrunners in a group, like, bro, yeah, I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm just saying this shit is not getting fixed anytime soon. Like, let's rain check 2025 and see if that's fixed.
Actually, for the past like 30 minutes, so then they'd have to go back and like we wait for them, and we just do dungeons while they like do that quest, or we'd have to go back with them and they become party leader and do it through. It just is, it's not fully intuitive right now. There's also a second.
Oh, hold on. Dev reply. The game literally screams at you when you're not synced to the host's world state. There's no bug here. Right, but does it scream at them loud enough? Does it? I don't know. I didn't play in a group.
Second piece that I don't have right here in party, but this is kind of in dungeons as well. There's something funky with Nightmare Dungeons and party play, where sometimes, and I have multiple examples, if you like watch my streams, I could like highlight this for you, where I'll be in the dungeon and somebody else will try and enter the dungeon, or they'll complete a different dungeon if they're off doing their own thing, and then it'll kick me out of the dungeon. And then they'll go in the dungeon, and if I try and enter, it kicks them out.
No idea.
And like we can't all join into the same Nightmare Dungeon, and then we just kind of lose that Nightmare Dungeon. It's really strange. I don't exactly know what the bug is. It's happened in kind of a different variety of ways multiple times, but it's really frustrating, especially when I'm like 2/3 the way, or like at the boss of a Nightmare Dungeon, and then I'm like, hey, come on in, guys, and they come in, and then it kicks me out, and I lose all the progress as well.
So, if you have a Nightmare Dungeon and log out, you lose it. Doesn't matter if you're in it. That system sucks. But, why do they have that system to begin with? It should probably be, like, if you leave the Nightmare Dungeon, it uses up, like, a death. Because that's the only reason, right? Because they don't want you to, like, cheese and exit instead of actually dying. But I feel like if you're not even in the damn dungeon, it really shouldn't disappear when you log out. Or, let's be real, crash. Especially when zoning into it, which is how most of mine happen. Yeah.
So that's pretty frustrating. Next, we have monsters. Can we remove monsters interrupting? I don't think it needs to be removed at every single spot in the game. I think there's, okay, with certain spots that you like intentionally want to have it. But at the very least, I would like to remove interrupting going to town. There's nothing more frustrating than like opening up the map and it covering my whole screen and I'm swiping over to where I want to waypoint to, clicking the spot, starting the cooldown of it, and then one monster runs over, shoots an arrow, and it hits me and it interrupts it. And I have to go kill that monster, maybe I aggroed another one, kill that monster, open the map back up again, scroll over to find that waypoint that I want to get on the map, click it, and repeat, starting the cooldown again. And sometimes one other monster comes and hits me, and it's just like, it just feels again like a big time waste. I think it'd be great if...
He's not wrong about this. Just keep in mind he's playing a Sork. So a Sork can use the flame shield to prevent interrupt during the cast or pickup of an item. Sork's like the literal greatest of not being interrupted. But yeah, it's still a little annoying.
The monsters would still damage me, but then I'm risking death versus escape on portal, right? So I don't get an immediate portal home, but I can sit there and start the portal, and then the monsters can be attacking me, and it's like, oh, I might die, I might not, but like I'm not just getting interrupted in between every single time. I think there's also plenty of other times where getting interrupted is just really, really annoying. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know if, again, I'm not trying to make the game like simple and easy and remove any difficulty, but I just like the idea of not having everything be an interrupt, because it doesn't feel like a difficulty, it just feels like a time waste, right? It just feels super annoying every time that happens. And I think that's what a lot of this feedback is also going to be aimed at, is trying to remove the annoyance from the game in many of the ways.
Sure.
Beyond that, we have quest. Number 1, please allow me to have more than one quest up on the side screen, and please get rid of the side quest limit. It is actually super frustrating, both of those. Number 1, to only be able to track one quest at a time, especially when I'm doing like 2 or 3 quests at the same time because they're kind of in the same area. That's just frustrating. And number 2, when I have 20 out of 20 side quests and then I'm running through an area and something drops that's a quest item and I try and pick it up and it says you have too many side quests. And now I have to go in and either like abandon one of them, and I'm not sure if I had some progress on that one or not exactly.
So the solution to what he's talking about is pretty simple. You just should do all the quests, and then not just like pick up a bunch of quests, do like all the quests, like 1 or 2 at a time from each city hub. That's the best way to do it. And then you won't encounter that problem. And then hopefully you finish that before the next season comes out. Because you have to do it again.
Or I just, leave that item there and don't get that side quest. I don't know why, we have to limit it like that. Number 2, add a list of completed side quests so you know what you need to do. This is a request I've gotten from a lot of people. So many people have reported to me that they have a few side quests left.
Okay, guys. Yeah, I don't have the video on the screen, but he just has like a spreadsheet up and he's talking, so we're listening. It's like we're listening to a podcast. Okay. Normally I'd have it on my other screen, but yeah, it is what it is. Actually, Salt sent me some software where you can like put it like permanently over, but he did that during the stream. I haven't set it up yet, so I can look at doing that tomorrow or something. All right. Right now this is what it is.
But they have no clue what they are, and they have no clue which ones they've actually done. I think you could also do this for dungeon tracking as well. Dungeons are a little easier because you can see like the aspect chest next to it, so you kind of have an idea. But just having a way to have a list or a journal or something where you actually list the ones that are done. I don't think there needs to be a ton of hand holding, so it like takes you to everything that you need. But just having something for tracking that, and I completely agree, because that's frustrating when you're trying to 100% it and you're like, I don't know what's left and what's completed.
Yep.
And last one, allow me to stay mounted to turn in quest. I think this would just be a simple, small thing
the mount needs like
serious
work.
A small, again, annoyance to have to get off the horse every single time
pure
to
annoyance.
turn in the quest to just get back on my horse, right?
Okay, I talked about this. I want my mount. If it's gonna have to be a game with lots of running, and it is, okay, it is. If it's gonna be that kind of game, my mount needs to be like a freight train, okay? If there's monsters, barriers, NPCs, deer, okay, anything, I want my mount to trample it, to like delete it, or at least push it out of the way. Yeah, freight train mode. That's what I want out of my mount. This whole thing where my poor horse has to slow down because the terrain is slightly uphill. No, screw that. I need some like stubborn asshole horse, because it's uphill. He just goes more ham. I want my mount to go faster when it's uphill, so he conquers the hill. You know? Yeah, that's what I want.
Moving on, dungeons. Get rid of dungeon objectives. This might be too far.
That ain't happening.
And I understand. This is, all of this is just my personal opinion. But I've done a lot of dungeons, and I'm just getting really tired of bringing 3 bloodstones, mechanical boxes, pushing levers, freeing the soldier, whatever, or the prisoners. I really just want to go in dungeons and kind of kill stuff.
Right.
I don't hate the idea of a couple things. Number one, potentially keeping the objectives when you're first farming a dungeon to get an aspect, or so it's like there's always like that first time you go in to get the aspect. It's all of that, and then when you're farming it afterwards,
upgrade a horse's
you just
platinum.
go without the objectives, and you can just go in and do like glyph rank up and killing stuff. So I think that would be nice. But additionally, I think you could also simplify some of the objectives down, because there's certain objectives like collect 3 bloodstones, where if I'm in a party, it's not horrible. But if I'm solo...
Okay. Hold up. So you're telling me there are necromancer-only unique boots without movement speed? Who designed this item? Who is it? I need a name. This person has not played this game. They literally couldn't have stats that would be useful. They just can't have them. There's no point even reading the stats. And if you don't know, you cannot reroll stats on uniques. I hate Necro.
Going in and collecting the 3 bloodstones, and then, I missed that one and I got to backtrack to it and stuff. It just gets tiring after your 100th dungeon, right? So, again, this one I could understand being like too far for many people. But for me, I feel like a lot of the dungeon objectives, I'm just getting a little exhausted, rinsing out.
More constructed next time.
This would allow me to kill stuff or rush through for glyphs, depending on what I'm wanting to do. I think all of this just gives more agency to the player. Next, preview Nightmare Sigil dungeon on the map. This allows us to see if we've completed it for the aspect or renown or not. I think this would be very helpful. Because again, whenever I'm going through and I'm looking at all of the Nightmare Sigils and I'm trying to get my renown, I was like, have I done this dungeon yet? I don't know. and it's like I could either open the map and try and search all around for where it is to find it, which that just takes forever and would be annoying, or what I've just been doing is I just run it and then I open my map, see if it's completed. If it is completed, then I just put another Nightmare Sigil over it, and I just kind of keep deleting the Nightmare Sigil essentially until I find one that I haven't done while I'm trying to get aspects in Renown. I think having a preview to see what dungeon it is, it just shows that to you, would be really helpful. Or just if it even says if you've done this or not. Overall, if you've done that dungeon, I think that would be an improvement. Next, farming champions demise / other dungeons as the best leveling should be fixed. I think a lot of this comes from the dynamic level scaling. I think nightmare dungeons should probably be where we need to eventually go, and it kind of pushes us there because, again, yes, we don't have to do champions demise. I'm not even doing it now in the 90s. I'm just kind of going and doing the nightmare dungeons to have more variety and fun. But whenever there is a...
He said he's playing the game 12 hours a day. He hasn't leveled to 100? What is he doing? What do you mean in the 90s? Like in the 1990s? We talking about the year 1990?
Most efficient route, it pushes anybody who's trying to race up, anybody who's trying to get that character farmed most efficiently to that, and I think that gets kind of tiresome, right? So I think you could cap outside regular dungeons with how much leveling they have, or whatever, right? Just something to, I don't know exactly, change dynamic scaling, which I think that's a separate piece. I wrote a little piece already for you on that. But I think just that change would be good. And lastly, make it easier to get uncompleted dungeons as sigils. Something that I did find, even when I didn't have a ton of dungeons, was that all of my sigils, except for like one, was for dungeons that I'd already...
Okay. Their nightmare sigil systems really not very good. Okay. The inventory part, the go to there part, the map notification, the information of what kind of dungeon it is, and whether you've completed all the different things like he's talking about. A lot of the nightmare dungeon mods are really ridiculous. The lightning thing that definitely one-shots you in higher nightmare tiers can spawn outside of the room that you're locked in. If it's one of those like rooms, like clear, yeah. So if you can't survive the lightning bolt, and not everyone's going to be able to based on the dungeon tier, you literally just die in that case. There's other things. You have to pick up objects. That takes too long. And there's that red thing following around novaing you all the time. Some of the modifiers are just ridiculous. The fact that monsters have, again, I don't know this for a fact, but it seems like they have added damage reduction scaling. So if you're doing burning damage and you're doing a burning damage nightmare sigil, there's like minus 60 burning damage. It's like one of the modifiers. If you get one of these guys, damage resistance aura or suppression, you literally don't do damage to them. That sucks. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like some of the affix stuff is just really, really annoying. Like, there needs to be more nuanced counters. Like, one of the affixes is every rare has like the cold mod. So, do you know what you do if you don't have chain unbreakable, like Barb or Druid? You know what you do? You just constantly get frozen and sit there. There's no like cannot be frozen. You can't do anything against that. It's not like, oh, you want to make a build that doesn't just use burning damage. It's like, no, it's like this class doesn't do that. The one I'm playing specifically doesn't do that. So yeah, that's really lame. Anyway, there's a lot more stuff. Like Nightmare Dungeons as a whole, it's a pretty rough system, I would say. Even the glyphs. Dude, almost every single glyph is worthless until 15. So, like, that's kind of a problem. Especially because like a new player, like someone's gonna tell him use this glyph because it's so good. And then some glyphs cannot have the stat requirements. Like I'm trying to go offhand. I think it's the fire glyph. The fire glyph that buffs fire nodes, until it's 15, not only can you not meet the stat requirement on the one board where it works, but until it's 15, it doesn't even reach the goddamn rare nodes. It's like a double fail. Right? So like the whole thing needs to be like finely tuned all over again.
Already completed. I'm not exactly sure what the behind the scenes of this is, if you are mostly only dropping nightmare sigils of dungeons that you've already done, if that just happens to be coincidence, if there's just more commonality of certain dungeons. I don't know what, but I just found that I had like 25 sigils and only one of them was to an uncompleted dungeon, and the rest were to completed ones. And again, I had not even like half the dungeons done yet. So whatever that piece is, I think it would be nice, so that way we can kind of again get renown while we're also doing the nightmare dungeons in the later stages. Itemization. Sacred versus ancestral aspects, I think it's really confusing, because from my understanding, there's no difference on many of the aspects.
That's
so
correct.
Why is there a difference in this coloring, the you know, the look of it, the extraction cost, if it
So the reason there's a difference between extraction cost and coloring is because until I think literally the launch of the game, like a week ago, you needed to find the corresponding tier. So I guess they decided that's a really bad system, and they just kind of did a last minute fix on it. Yeah. So that's why that is.
it doesn't change at all. There's some of them that it does adjust.
No,
but
I don't think so.
From my understanding, it's not all of them, and so
it's none of them. I think it's
that there, like I say, there's just some confusion there that certain ones it isn't adjusting at all, but those ones are still having a difference in cost. I think that is just a piece that could be improved, even a tooltip, something to help about it. Again, maybe I'm misunderstanding that, but that was from my understanding of what I've seen. There's been certain aspects where there's no difference whatsoever.
All of them.
Between, the sacred or ancestral or anything.
The best strategy when you make a character is from the very start, you want to use your like obols and gamble aspects that you'll use when your character is like level 90. Like, look at my inventory. Perfect Bone Storm, level 27. Perfect Army of the Dead, level 33. 62, 58, 54, 44, and I've used a lot of them. There are ones that scale. Which ones scale? Oh, the numerical ones. Oh, right. It's like Blizzard and stuff. But okay, no, I wanna make a correction. So we're talking about like this stuff. This just scales with item power. It does not scale with the tier. It's just like, I think north of 705, the item has to be ancestral, for example. So I guess that's true. Yeah. Okay.
Number 2, every item base is the same for the most part.
Yeah,
I know there's a few little differences with item bases that it's like this one has, like 1 second after evade, you get 50% move speed, or this one has extra evade charges. There's a couple pieces like that, but many of them have no difference whatsoever. There's no, you might as well call thing hat, like armor, glove, weapon, wand, right? Like there's not really a difference in so many of these item bases,
No
and it's
difference.
confusing that this heavy helm would have no difference from just like a cap, Like to me,
I brought this up, and my version is mostly like a thematic one. I don't know, what am I wearing? Runic Mail of the Protector. Okay. So if I wore that, or if I wore literal pajamas, if my pajamas were item level 737, they would have the same stat requirements, so they'd be just as easy to wear, and they'd provide the same amount of damage reduction. Right? And you might think I'm kidding, but like some of the gear is literally like cloth boots versus plated greaves. Right? Same requirements, same armor. It's just, it doesn't feel good. I think a pretty core part of an RPG is the items. Okay, they have to kind of make sense in terms of how they're structured and their stats. And honestly, except for like resists and armor, they actually kind of do. They actually kind of do in terms of the stats. The 4-stat requirement, I thought I'd hate it, but it actually puts constraints on how you build a character. I actually kind of like it. But like the thematics of it, there's like 0. And that part is really lame in my opinion. And his, apparently.
I'm like, hey, if there's a heavy helm, I want that to be a bigger, tankier helm compared to the cap. But then they have some differences in maybe how other affixes roll or requirements or whatever it is. And so, again, I know there's not like requirements here, but I just think having a difference in item bases could be improved here because there's really not much difference for the most part. And so it's confusing why we really have a bunch of item bases. The third point, fix resistances, please. They're not correct. Kripp just did a video on this.
Thank you.
They do like 10 to 15 times less than they should to even be somewhat helping. So, yeah.
I just want to mention I really appreciate the support on this because I feel like a lot of content creators have been dropping on the bandwagon where it's like, well, actually, this is how they work and they're pretty good under this circumstance, and they're not even. I don't know exactly how they work even. I know how they work in normal difficulty, but I don't even know how the penalties like apply exactly when you have multiple stacking resistances. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I know how the formula works. You don't have to understand a formula for something in order to see how effective it is. And the resist rolls, their effect on your character, on their item, on the items and the paragons, are a complete joke. The effect of them is, 15 up to 30 times worse if you're actually stacking resistances of comparable damage reduction stats. They're just horrible. Just really horrible. And given how in Diablo 2, hell, in Diablo 3, resists were pretty even with armor. Like, they were pretty even. An item didn't have all resists, and it was like, that item's shit. It was like, has all resists, maybe you want a little bit more armor instead of all resists. That was kind of the sentiment, right? And Diablo 2, you need resists. I actually don't even remember Diablo 1. I think resists were part of it, right? Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac was all stats, all resists. Yes. So like every Diablo game. And then in this one, resists are like 30 times worse than any other defensive stat on a piece of gear. If you're like a Sork. And there's a lot of Sorks. So yeah, it's not a small issue at all. Armor's busted, resists are garbage. Alright.
Yeah, that's his video. You can reference there if you want more. Number 4, required level based on your level is strange. I think it's weird that is what becomes the required level on an item. especially when you're looking at like trading items later. It's like if I'm level 100 and I'm finding rare items, I can only trade them to other level 100s now, because then they would only be able to use it.
So this is definitely really stupid, and I agree with him. But there is a little bit of nuance here. I kind of feel like I'm playing devil's advocate, but there is a little bit of nuance here. It really doesn't matter because there's no like convenient way to actually trade items, so it really only affects your other characters, like your alts. And I'm pretty sure they just want you to play longer, so who cares, right? Like they don't really care. Just play more. You make a new int character, you want to make a second Sork, yeah, whatever. Just find your own items again, or try to fit them in your tiny stash. Lol, get wrecked. Okay. So that's basically it. But so the way the item system works, so like if you're level 60 in difficulty 4, the mobs are still 70, so you get drops that are level 70, and level 70 drops can be ancestral. Now, level 70 mobs, while they can drop ancestral, they're not going to very often. But if they drop an ancestral, it will have a lower level requirement. Now, once you level up, if you're doing like level 100 and level 100 bosses and stuff, almost all your rares that drop are going to be ancestral. So you get higher frequency. There's another aspect. Even though you can get, I think, the full range of item level, you generally won't get very high item level when you are lower level. Like the best two-hander I have found so far, and I'm like I just hit 73, is this one. I haven't found a single one over 800. But I have found like a handful of items over 800. So you can find items of like the maximum item level, but at low level, you usually don't. So in this system, if they had some form of robust trading system, and you can trade rares if you don't modify them, if you find like an 8-10 item power two-hander, but its level requirement is like 50, that is like a god tier leveling weapon, and it would be insanely rare. Okay, so there is some nuance within this crappy system. It is a crappy system, I think. I agree with him, but there is some nuance that can come from it.
I feel like item level requirement should be dependent on the item itself. Make it dependent on the item power if you want. Make it dependent on, certain rolls of affixes, whatever it is. But having it just dependent on my character's level is weird. Number 5, give ordering to affixes. This would be so helpful in making them readable. Because something that I know from, and again, this is from Diablo 2, but also from like literally every other game that I've played that has affixes, having an affix order allows for you to have this muscle memory, maybe not muscle, eye muscle, but this memory of seeing items and recognizing patterns very quickly. I can look at an item in Diablo 2 and it could have 20 affixes on it, whatever. It could have all 6 affixes or even more, right, if you've like crafted on it. And I can know in a tenth of a second, before I even know, I can know everything on that item and if I want to keep that item or not, because I know, my brain knows the affix orders and I know exactly where to look for all the things that I actually care about. And it's just everything registers into my brain very quickly, right? From just being able to see those items. Every time in Diablo 4, because there's no ordering, it's hard to tell because you take a look and it's like damage to close enemies could be at the very bottom or it could be at the very top, and max mana could be up here or down there. Having just a generic order, I don't care what the order is, but having an order would improve this greatly and allow for us to read items a lot better, compare them a lot better, and remove that annoyance. Number 6, remove white/blue items in the later game if we're not going to adjust itemization to make them useful, or just let us have that loot filter. But if there's not going to be a loot filter and there's not going to be any use for white and blue items, having them drop, I feel like, is just kind of, there's no point in having them drop, right? They just kind of are something that you accidentally click and they fill up your inventory. Number 7, show item level power on ground next to item. Again, if not going to give us a loot filter. I think this could be an easy thing. It could just be, you know, wand and then in parentheses 789. You could have that under an advanced tooltip that you go and click if you want. Really easy thing to adjust. And again, this now makes it so much easier when I'm playing that I'm just not going to pick that up. That's 684 item power, and I don't care to look at that. This would help, again, with just that annoyance. Number 8, re-rolling on item power breakpoints has potential to downgrade an affix. I think this is just confusing. So whenever you hit those different breakpoints within your item power.
So basically, I keep stressing this highest item power bracket for stats. It's 725, except for life and thorns, which just goes forever. So if you get an item that's below, let's just, okay, let's see if we got one. So 701. So this item, you see how the life range is 175 to 370? If I upgrade this 5 times on the blacksmith, it's going to re-roll those ranges because it's going to have a new bracket. The bottom of the next bracket for life is like 340. So if you had like 370 life on this, and you went to the blacksmith and upgraded a bunch of times, it could actually upgrade and have less life. Which, by the way, is exactly what happened to this ring. Yeah. It was a perfect roll vulnerable damage, and then it went and became literal worst roll vulnerable damage. Yeah. So that can happen.
It re-rolls the affixes, and I think it's kind of it's kind of cool in some way, because it's like, ooh, you know, I could like have an item that doesn't have great rolls, and then I boost it up, I upgrade it, and it goes to the next item power, and it hits that breakpoint, and then it rolls to really great stats. So I think that's like kind of cool, but I think it's confusing. Like I don't think anybody knows that, or I mean not nobody, but like many people don't know that, and I think that it can just be confusing. There needs to be more tooltip, again, something around it to explain it, whatever it is. Number 9, let me mark items as keep or lock, not just junk. I actually don't care to really mark items as junk, but I do care to lock items. And so I'd actually rather reverse it. Press spacebar to lock an item, so then I can just trash everything in my inventory, but not the item that I've locked. Number 10, maybe consider moving aspects into a book instead of having them be an item. Just like we have the Codex of Power, we could have our own book of extracted aspects, and then we could just select from that and put that in. I think that would be
level or two
a better approach overall to it. I think aspects being this like item is kind of, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it fits as well with the system. Again, this is a small one, but you can, you know, decide if you like it or not. And number 11, account bound for simply upgrading an item, but it's still being...
What call? Something your disk is vibrating? No, that's my computer fan. You guys can hear that?
Rare seems kind of off. I think this is going to be confusing again and doesn't really make sense, because a lot of times you're upgrading an item just to like see what the affixes look like when they're at their max roll compared to the thing that you're using. And then you can't trade it now because you've upgraded it. It's like, again, as a Diablo 2 player, I like open trade. I don't think we should have limited trade anyways, but I think this trade, like,
maybe Zach
being
phone.
already kind of, brought down that's like excessive. Moving on, in the town, condense the useful pieces of town a bit more. My biggest complaint is the stash. Why is the stash so far away from the waypoint in so many towns? Occultists and others can be quite...
It's realism, guys. It's realism. They don't put the bank in the open, okay? It has a very heavy focus on realism, okay? Now take your eye level 813 bunny slippers with your item level 800 pajamas and roll some top stats on them, okay?
Spaced, like, I think you can keep some things having some space. I don't think everything needs to be like immediately next to it, but I do question in certain spots why the stash is just like really far away. That's
realism,
something,
bro. Do you even realism?
That's like such a useful and important thing. It's like that should be pretty close to the waypoint, right? Next, tabs. I think just more stash tabs in general. You can make these personalized, such as one for sigils or gems or aspects, any of that. But just having, more ways to kind of store things in personalized ways, I think would be great. Map. It can be hard to distinguish where I am on the map. I think making it a little bit easier.
There's a lot wrong with the map than just that.
My arrow of who I am, or what the marker for myself being better, would improve it. I've lost myself multiple times when looking at the map, and then I'm like, crap, wait, where am I? And then I close it and open it, and I'm still like looking around. So just having a little bit better UI there, I think, would improve that. Number 2, allow for the mini-map to have a zoom level. It's very zoomed in on that top right. I think that would be really helpful if we could somehow adjust how far we want that mini-map zoomed in or out. Again, it doesn't have to be like all the way to the max or anything, but just even some small changes I think would be improvements.
Yes.
And third,
not very
when
good.
you press M and open the map and then you click on a quest, centering the map on said quest that you clicked, I think would be helpful. So it can just kind of like take you over to what it is that you clicked. Next, we have potions. The level 30 potion that requires crushed beast bones. This is the only potion that I think is like a struggle. And it's not a struggle for everybody. But I know for my group, we didn't upgrade this potion till we were like level 46 or 47. And I know many other people said the same thing. It took us forever to find these crushed beast bones and upgrade it. Other people, they found them really easy. I don't know.
Oh, they fixed
this
that?
was the only potion for us that was kind of this miserable grind. Everything else, again, we just like had the materials, or we were able to just like craft a couple of...
Wait, you guys craft potions? Have you guys not heard of Helltide? You get the mystery chest. Minimum 2 elixirs every time. Every single chest. You guys craft them? Is this a lot? Rare crafting material. 832. Yeah, obviously it's not that rare.
of them from the crafting, and then we could like upgrade the potion. But this one, it just was
potion.
not simple. I think a lot of people got stuck on this potion.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so I think adjusting the material drop rate for crushed beast bones, or adjusting the material used in it, something would improve it. Because I don't hate the idea of a potion being like hard to upgrade and you have to go farm to like upgrade it. I just think it doesn't fit when none of the other potions have that, right? So if the theme overall is every potion is going to be a grind, then it could be, okay, I know I need to go grind these different dungeons and areas to get, this material to upgrade my potion. But when the 10, the 20, the 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, right, all of those require no grind, but just the 30 does, it doesn't fit very well with the theme of of potion.
Sure.
Moving into clan, this is from my chat. I have not done much clan experience or done much clan exploration, but here is what they've said. Please show last online, client last played on, etc. in the UI, so just having more there, and show if the person is softcore or hardcore in the clan. I think these are good suggestions. Just having more information around the players can be great to know, hey, this person doesn't ever get on, we need to kick them out to make room. Or, hey, this is,
I just had a crushed beast
playing
bone, baby.
hardcore, and I'm looking for someone in softcore
What
to
do I even
party
have?
with. Again, more information is better.
289.
And maybe clans aren't even cross softcore and hardcore, but I imagine they are. Horsey, allow for sprinting in town if not going to adjust the placement of like stashes. I think that would help. You can just speed up a little bit in the town because right now it's...
No, it's better if it's slower because we increase playtime. Obviously, this is good. The slower they run, the more they're gonna play. Forehead, right? Easy.
Quite slow. Number 2, remove mount cooldowns except in the PvP zone. This was something that I had mentioned before about getting rid of those mount cooldowns, maybe having it just be short if you get knocked off, but none otherwise. But I think in the PvP zone, then it would just, you could always just mount up immediately, run away, and it would just end that. So I'm just adding a further note on saying in the PvP zone, I think keeping those cooldowns is probably a good move. And number 3, breaking barricades with sprint or jumping over barricades when sprinting
I want
could
freight
be
train
a nice
level
addition, if not wanting to just remove the barricades. I talked about removing them. I called them barriers before. I talked about removing the barricades in the last video. I think if you don't want to remove them,
leave the barricades in there. I want my mount to crush the barricade and kill the monsters, those like little camping shitbags. Okay, it's always like 2 imps or skeletons. It's not like it's a rare mob. Okay, it's always 2 little shits. Okay, I want those things to like get trampled and like explode all over the screen. I want maximum gore. Okay, I want the campers to be deleted. Yeah, leave them in though. Leave them in. That's fine. That's fine. It's content.
this could be a small addition. Seasons and alternate characters. I really would say consider what will be required for new characters in regards to renown. Having to recomplete the maps, the dungeons, the altars, the side quests every 3 months, or for every character there, if softcore, hardcore, to get the renown, which is really important, I believe will get tiresome very quickly, and I think it will drive people away.
What?
I know for me, if you release a season and there's a new boss and a few new uniques and it looks cool, but then I look and I'm like, I have to go re-explore everything. I have to go click on everything again. I have to go, do every single one of those dungeons again, do those side quests again, just to get my renown on my character. That's going to probably push me away from constantly wanting to come back every 3 months.
Quests. Yes.
I believe currently, and I may be mistaken, but my current belief is the Altars of Lilith stats continue through, but
it's completely irrelevant. You cannot even cap out a zone without getting most of the Lilith altars again.
None of the renown does. Thus, you will not get the plus skill points or the 20 paragon points that you'll need. And again, 20 paragon and plus 5 skill. Wait, is it 20? Yeah, 20 paragon and 5 skills is a lot. You need to have all of that to really feel like you've done a lot with your character.
If you
don't do any renown and don't get all of that each season, your character is going to definitely feel weaker. It's not like, oh, I just didn't get, something that gives me plus 10 life or something, right? It's plus 10 skills, right? Because there's at the 1 and the 3.
Well, you get the 1. You get even... Okay. The first 3 are so easy if you just explore the map and just do a handful of dungeon in each zone, which you will do just leveling and doing like the tree missions and like a few nightmare dungeons. Like I get like this character, I didn't do a single quest. It's not even one. So yeah, like 900. Bam, look at that. 3, 3, 3. Okay. But like I did no quests on this character. Nothing. So the skill points aren't really gated from just playing the game. It's mostly the Paragon points that are super gated from playing the game.
Ones are pretty easy, that's why. But regardless, like, it is quite important, I feel like, to actually get your renown if you want to have a full character. But I can tell you that I would get really tired of doing this full completion every single 3 months. And yeah, I think it's going to drive people away a bit having that. So I would consider what that looks like further. Again, I don't know exactly what it is. I'm not trying to say let's make this game completely easy and have no challenge and you don't have to do anything whatsoever.
Yes,
but
just give me 100.
I think it's faster for me to go through the entire PoE campaign and explore like the whole map tree and get all the maps than it is to do all of the renown again in Diablo 4.
Yes.
Moving on. And that is a slog in some of that as well there. And here I get to skip the story too, right? Moving on, main screen. Allow me to view the cinematics that I have unlocked. I think that would just be great.
This is in Diablo too.
I love the cinematics. The cinematics are amazing. And so anything that you've seen already, why not allow them to see it again? Next, we have shrines.
Hold on, I just have to be in position for this event. Okay. A month from now, when this season stuff comes out, you guys are going to be busy, okay? There's a lot of stuff to do. It, like, not feeling repetitive, that's, like, super vague. What someone else thinks is not repetitive might be not even close to what another person thinks is not repetitive. So that statement just does not instill a lot of confidence. If we take the literal meaning of what was said, the altars will not reset. That specific thing doesn't mean anything. Because if you have to get the entire renown grind, you might as well reset them. Might as well. Doesn't make any difference, really.
Greed shrines scale, so they don't just become worthless later on. I think this would be a small change to improve, because greed shrines in the latter half of the game are just pretty pointless. And I would slightly decrease the amount of curse shrines and chest, or maybe just decrease the duration a little bit.
I like it.
It currently feels like I don't even want to press chest anymore, and I'm hesitant to press many shrines. Because if I'm not in the mood for doing...
Okay, if you're level 100, yes. But if you're not level 100, I don't see the problem. The cursed event things are pretty good experience. And that is especially important now that they nerfed the crap out of all the dungeons.
That minute of, curse waiting for the stuff to spawn, it just feels like that happens pretty often. Again, this is a personal opinion that like you can be like, nah, we like the amount. And that's cool. That's something that I'm like, I think I'd like a little bit less. Quality of life. Allow for setting a default town to portal to. Yeah, portaling back to just random towns and stuff I think is kind of annoying.
Okay, they're not random. The way it works is pretty important. If you go to the map and port to a town, you port to that town. It's like where you want. If you press your town portal, what it does is each of the 5 zones has a major city hub, which is the city that has every single like utility-based vendor or stash or whatever. You go to that. So that's pretty important. because yeah, that's where you want to go if your inventory is completely full. You press T.
There's definitely towns that have better setups than others. And so if I just had a default one that I could always take a town portal back to go to, I think that
He's
would
right,
be
I'd rather have
improved.
a set one.
Number 2, teleport to player from party. This exists in Diablo 3. Or add all portals to every waypoint and not just major cities. I think that might be hard because of the layouts of many of those cities. They aren't really built for portals always. But teleport to player, because right now, if I'm in a party and I need to go to where my friend is, and I'm in a different town, I have to first teleport to Kyovashad or whatever major city, wait through that load screen just to go through their TP to then go to where they are and go through that second load screen.
You know what game didn't have load screens? Diablo 2. Yeah, you only get load screens changing acts. Yeah. It's pretty good.
It's just like an additional load screen and additional hassle for reason that I don't think needs to exist. And the third one, having some sort of armory like in D3 that includes gear, skill trees, and Paragon board. You could bundle it all up with the whole respec cost into a single button. So then I could just go push my button if I want to ever change my build, and it will shift that gear, shift the board, shift everything over. That's probably a big ask, and I doubt that we'll get it. But that's just something I think that could be a little bit nice to say, hey, if there's, a couple different builds, I have my PvP build and I have my PvE build, and I can go and just push that button and it'll just make the shifts right there, right? That'd be great.
It'd be a gold
and lastly,
button.
characters, Barbarian. This is from someone in chat, or a few people. They said allow for more control binds so that I can swap a weapon in combat on a Barbarian for additional build variety. My assumption is this is not just having the...
Whoa. Are we talking about people who rolled Barbarian knowing full well 5 out of their 6 skills are locked in and just button smashed every 20 seconds? Those guys are requesting build variety? Well, ain't that rich. Okay. Ain't that rich.
Set for like this skill always uses this weapon, but instead allowing them to kind of weapon swap mid-combat. That's my guess of what they were exactly meaning there. But it seemed like a few people
18
were
seconds.
asking for
Nice.
that. So I just
That's
put
a
that
good
note
cooldown
in there,
reduction,
but
bro.
I haven't experienced that yet, so just throwing it out. So that is all for part 2. Again, not trying to just nitpick and not trying to just say anything like this game is trash, all these things need to be changed or it's garbage. But I'm just, as I'm playing more, as I'm going through more, I'm just finding more pieces that I go,
Joking.
man,
Nice.
if this was just adjusted a little bit, it would remove that annoyance. It would make that a better system.
Ultimately, his conclusion's totally correct. Like, and this is kind of what I mean when, like, in that first Diablo review that I did from the first beta weekend, it's like stuff is just not finely tuned. I said the game's probably going to release underbaked. They look like they're really trying to bake things, but it's very last minute, over the line type of thing, right? Like, yeah. But that's basically it. Yeah, everything could be a little better. Just like everything could be a little better.